Good evening and welcome to Tune In with Talya. I'd like to welcome a special, very incredibly talented guest this evening and very dear friend too from years ago, Andrew Shapiro. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Talya.
How you doing, Andrew?
Good. I feel very honored to be part of the Tune In with Talya family.
Well, I am so honored that you agreed to come on and talk about yourself and share your music. And yeah,
Thanks, because I mean, even though pandemic and I haven't been traveling, though, I just finally booked my first flight for a few weeks from now to go off and play at someone's thing. But
that's great. That's exciting.
It's been, yeah, it is. It's been very, very busy because I'm just writing a lot of music right now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Are you ever not writing a lot though? Because I feel like that's what you do.
I mean, I sort of, whether for better or worse, I sort of seem to always be writing like, and I'm not joking, like about 400 compositions at the same time.
Oh my goodness.
And they all just come off and they're all at various stages of the pipeline, and they all just come off the pipeline when they come off the pipe. Come out of the pipeline. It just seems to be how it goes. Okay. And I'll sit down and be like, I got to finish this thing. I mean, if someone's, sometimes there are things that just force you to do, like write music for a Honda commercial for the United Arab Emirates, then you can write that in about 2 hours.
Wow.
But otherwise, I mean, what I write is for me, and it takes a long time for that all to develop,
Yeah,
it's hard. I mean, I find writing music to be very difficult, but I also find it to be probably, I would think, the most interesting thing I've ever stumbled upon in my life. I mean, I think sometimes, like, if I'm writing with pencil and paper, like I'm writing all these string quartets right now, and that's just pencil and paper, and it's like I'm nowhere near a computer. But sometimes the music is like synth pop, ambient, whatever, and I'm like writing it in a computer, and then it becomes like a computer game because you're like writing all the licks, and you can copy and paste, and you can change the sounds, and then you could do this or that, and you could do a million other things, and you could like copy it and paste it next to it and add another track and bounce it up an octave and then take the vocals and do a million things. I mean, it's like a limitless thing you can do. And just add another track, add another track, add another track.
Do you enjoy that more than anything else? That sounds like.
Well, I mean.
Or it's just all.
Well, with one album, my Pink Jean and Green album.
Which, by the way, I listen to and I love.
Oh, thanks. I mean, that's like my most pop effort. It's like synth pop, but it's like very autobiographical synth pop where I grind a few axes, and I do talk about this sort of like, I guess, posh suburban, like Jewish cultural thing, which is
with the
what I
am. Lauren.
Yeah, my song Lauren's is a song about like 5 girls named Lauren that I just really had a thing for. There's something about the name Lauren. There are like all these Laurens, like my brother's friend from college, a girl I knew over, like another girl, like
Lauren is a very popular name.
I was a bartender after I graduated from school, and I met this girl named Lauren. It was like everyone's name was Lauren. I was like, I can't just write a song Lauren, so it's like Lauren's. And they're like, you forgot the apostrophe. I was like, no. And so then I had to put the S in parentheses. And then some guy in an interview asked me, you wrote a song about 5 girls named Lauren? And I was like, yes.
I love
He's
that.
like, oh, okay. But I mean, to me, this is going to sound like I don't want to be like too high level about it, but to me, the triumph of that song is the voice leading of the ambient and string clouds that happens towards the end. I mean, I know that sounds weird, but just the way it builds and builds and builds and builds and builds and just keeps going, 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 going. And I actually wrote it. I mean, I wrote it down on paper first, and then I wrote it, and it was just like, to me, the triumph of that song is the way that it just keeps building and building and building and building and building and building and building until it comes up there. And I got interviewed in this magazine, and this one guy said he was so pragmatic about it. He's like, you know what? Yeah, you know what? You like these girls, and they don't like you back, and that sucks. And I was like, yeah,
So
I
then write a
agree
song.
still, but I never really heard someone put it with such a distilled thing. Never mind, it was for Psychology Today magazine, and it was like a PhD psychologist who said it. And then he said something really interesting about, because then there's another song about that called Teen Tour Girl, which is autobiographical, it's tongue-in-cheek, it's astronomically sexist, but also not. And I said something to him about that, and he said, you know, the thing is like, you want these people to like you, but they're like vapid, but you still care whether or not they like you. And I was like, yeah, man, how do I like deal with that? He's like, I've been a psychiatrist, whatever, for like 20 years. I haven't been able to figure that one out. You know? So
Yeah.
of course, we're not talking about B flats and chord changes and whatever. It's all the things around the music. But yeah, Pink Jean Mint Green. And as we were talking about writing, and the reason why it came up is because we're talking about writing music in a computer and doing it in a program where you can make all these sounds, and it's kind of like playing a really complicated video game. But at a certain point, you're just changing stuff around, and it's sort of getting nowhere. And I had that thing in my computer for like 12 or 13 years.
Really? Before you
From the very beginning of the idea until I finally did it. And then I finally, my friend said, like, either just drop the whole project and dump it, or hire a producer to just like help you finish it. And
so it's like an
he dragged me over the finish line.
So you would say it's like an autobiography, like of different things happening in your life, or different feelings you've had through your journey that you've put into stories and then into music.
Yeah, I think that the Pink Jean Mint Green album is probably one place to start. But, you know, see, the thing is that when most people make a pop album, that's like the most important thing that they're doing. And they like work that sucker for like 2-3 years. They're doing a million things. And for me, it was like, all right, that's one of 19 like records I'm putting together right now. And I hired a publicist for it, which did like okay, but I don't know that I was even in any other position to like do anything else with that. As far as I was concerned, after 14 years or 15 years, the album was done. That was victory. I could turn the page and move on. Anything else that happened after that was gravy. You know, really and truly. Yeah. And it did end up getting used in some stuff. I mean, like, especially like some instrumental versions of some stuff ended up getting used in some like Japanese perfume commercials and
cool. Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. And when I worked with Neil Gaiman, the author, and I wrote a song with him, which is like the last song, it was about very autobiographical because my nanny was Scottish growing up. And I met him in Scotland. And we were talking, and I told him about an idea for a song, I just, you know, I wrote him a note. We exchanged it. We had dinner together with a few other people, and I wrote him a note, not expecting to hear back from him. I mean, he's like this big, huge, famous guy, but he wrote me a really nice note back, and he said that he liked what I had sent him, and I remember this clear as day. He said, quote, I really like these pieces. There's something I could imagine myself writing to, which is not something I say a lot. Close quote.
Nice.
And then I asked him if he wrote lyrics. Did he want to write lyrics? Yeah, okay. I said, well, do you want to write the lyrics first? Or should I write the music? He said, your call. So I wrote the music and I sent it to him. And then about 3 years later, I finally got the lyrics.
Wow. Did
And
you?
I was constantly like calling him and his assistant. I think he at that point had gone through like 3 or 4 assistants that I was dealing with by the time
Goodness.
that I finally got it. But no, I mean, we spoke on the phone and he was very cool. I mean, he taught me a lot. He said, look, you just continue to be persistently polite and we'll get there and we'll get this finished.
Nice.
And so I try to be persistently polite.
It's good advice.
Yeah, I
Nice.
mean, I think he said it in a way that was really helpful. You know, just be persistently polite.
Yeah.
And so I think that was helpful. So, but you know, I mean, the synth pop album, I love it, and yeah, it touches on a lot of. It's very autobiographical. I mean, but I mean, I thought that all the songs that I wrote would be way more popular than any of the piano music or instrumental music that I wrote, but I am completely wrong because and this A&R, this British A&R guy I spoke to a few years ago, he said, no. There is an insatiable demand for accessible piano music.
Yeah.
So, I mean, way more people, you know, are into eating ice cream than like the New York Yankees.
Oh,
You know, way more people are into listening to mellow piano music than they are listening to neo 80s Pet Shop Boys synth pop. You know, and one after another, publisher after another. Your ace card is your piano music. Your ace card is your piano music. Your ace card is your piano music. So I pushed the piano music.
When I met you, you were playing at McDonald's, right? You did that for a long time.
I think I played there for
I think
it was like 9 years,
and you were the first
10 years.
person I ever met who said like I have a steady gig at McDonald's. I
Yeah,
said
I should
that's
just
funny.
explain because there would be people that they would have no idea what I'm talking about. I read it in 2000. Let's see, I finished conservatory in '98, moved out to San Francisco for a couple of years, came back to New York in like December 2000. I moved into Williamsburg, into South Williamsburg, and I was just going around doing my thing, and I was like, is it me or is like the hardest thing in the world to do to like get a gig playing my piano music? Because like what they're like, yeah, you can get a gig, yeah, just pay $2,000 and rent our hall, and then you can do it. And okay, that's not happening.
Right.
And then a few gigs actually they're more like in LA, like friends, like underground classical events and just like sort of nooks and crannies, like at a library or at someone's apartment or just, like kind of finding nooks and crannies and getting the gigs like that. And then I read about this McDonald's with a piano in it by a block away from Ground Zero. And I called them and I talked to Paul Goodman. He lives out in Dix Hills and he's the owner of it. And I called him and he said, oh, I need someone, for Sundays. So I went and I played and I said, I want to play my own music. And it was great. I mean, I filled out the paperwork for the application for McDonald's and then the manager was there and he was like really nice. I mean, everyone was really nice. You go to like these like modern music places and they're not nice, but like they're just kind of like territorial and like just kind of like weird. For, like the smaller the stakes, the more mean and people are, I find. But no, he said, oh, can I get you something while you're filling out the application, a cup of coffee or something? And I said, man, what I really want is a vanilla milkshake. And he's like, no problem. It was at like 9:45 in the morning. And then I drank two. He gave me a second one.
Really? Wow.
So then I went up and started playing and he showed me this whole thing. I mean, it was a fancy McDonald's and he unlocks the door. There's a gift shop and go through this thing. Then there's this interior catwalk and you walk through it. And then you go down on this piano loft and it's lofted above the thing. And there's a baby grand piano there.
Like a fancy
It's this whole thing. And I was like, whoa, like this is totally trippy.
You
And
weren't
then,
expecting that, right? You weren't
yeah,
expecting that.
I didn't know exactly how it was set up, but I didn't think I was like, doing that. And it was also like the gift shop had been closed, I think maybe after 9/11. And this started in 2004. I think like maybe after 9/11, they just like closed up the like souvenir shop or something, part of it. But there was this like abandoned gift shop that I had to like use the key to go into. And there were like Happy Meal toys from like 1991 just like lying around there, or like a McDonald's cup, like McDonald's sponsors the 1994 World Cup, which was in America. I would just find these like random things lying all over the place, and I went down there and I started just playing my music. I just sat down, I opened my book, I started playing my music, and about, I don't know, like 45 minutes later, the manager guy came out, and he just sort of like walked over and just like stood there, like looking up at me, and just sort of like nodded his head and just spent like a minute just sort of like considering and thinking, and sort of like nodded his head and turned around and walked away. And I suppose the owner just said, just make sure the guy like knows how to play the piano. Like, and so the guy came out and like heard me. It's like, yeah, I guess this guy can play the piano. So then I got it, and then I met a lot of people through that,
I'm sure you did.
Well, a woman who spent time, half her year in Warsaw, half her year in New York, an elderly woman who wrote an article about like, if you're visiting New York, here are some like weird and quirky things to check out if you're in New York City. Andrew Shapiro playing the piano at McDonald's.
So that was your link to Poland.
Yeah, and then she ended up like introducing me to these like younger Polish artists, and then I started to. She'd call me up and she'd say like, Andrew, there's exhibition, young photographer in Greenpoint near your house. His name is Martin. Tomorrow night, bye, and hang up the phone. And I'd be like, all right, I'll go. Like I would just go.
Why not?
And then I ended up becoming friends with all these people, and then they went back, and then I ended up getting invited there. And I've gone to Poland probably like 6 or 7 times because of that.
And that TED Talk you did was in Poland, right?
Yeah, that was in Krakow.
I watched that too. Was pretty impressive.
That was fun. That was fun.
That was great.
That was cool, man.
So
that was a good gig. And but I think I fell into writing so much piano music. I think a lot of it is because I had 4 hours every Sunday to play at McDonald's.
And you were composing like on the spot. You were just making. What were you doing? Were you playing songs, or were you just making up your own thing?
Well, I was just kind of like would go in there with like some completed compositions that I just like play. Right. And then I'd have like rough drafts of compositions, and then I'd just have like sketches, and I would just like slowly, like sometimes just literally sit there, work on it, and just literally just sit there and write music.
Like 4-hour practice sessions, or
just like sessions. Literally just be sitting there writing a piano composition, starting and stopping and this and that and whatever.
Wow.
But I became, I realized some things about myself. One was that I had just at some point, I guess because of schooling or where I was from or whatever, that I had become such a cynical person because like one day I finished playing this piece and this group of kids started like clapping like really loudly, like, woo, cheering for me. And I thought that they were like making fun of me, like that they were sarcastic in their thing because I'm this like Brooklyn like hip guy and everything is ironic and I'm so cynical. And then I went out and I walked out and then they clapped for me again. And it turned out it was this like junior high school like Christian youth group trip to New York. And they read totally about
inspired them.
Then they put me in this book about like, 500 free and chic things to do in New York City. Andrew Shapiro performing at McDonald's. I ended up being in like all these books.
Isn't that incredible?
Doing it. And they were like
McDonald's. You're just like all.
They were like so genuine. They were like the nicest kids. And of course, if you're the chaperones are like always like the nicest people. And they lived like literally like 200 miles from the closest McDonald's or something like that. And they were like so nice. And I sat with them. And we I drank a cup of coffee with them. We took pictures. And I thought to myself, like, I'm less of a horrible human being now that I've had this experience with these people than before I have,
Yeah.
Sometimes I'd go there, it'd be this like group of like Romanian women sitting in the front row that were like very serious, like expecting a concert. And when the New York Times article came out entitled Quarter Pounder with Keys, when I got there that morning, there was this guy with the WQXR t-shirt, like waiting there with a cup of coffee. And I was like, all right, this is
All
game.
right, that's
Like,
awesome.
I know why this guy is here, and I know why he's wearing the WQXR t-shirt. And I was like, this is gold.
How awesome.
You know, like that he read it that morning and then showed up, you know. But you know, I think like everyone, I mean there's a lot of things that that one has to deal with. I mean, I just got a new distributor, and I'm hoping it's going to go well. I mean, there's a lot of just kind of boring nuts and boltsy stuff that's like I have to deal with, but it's not really that much fun to talk about. It's not particularly interesting. And actually, this composer named Richard Einhorn, do you know him? No. He lives on the Upper West Side, and he's a great composer. And I interviewed him for a magazine once years ago, and he'd say things like, because he had a lot of music used in Hollywood. Like he'd had pre-existing pieces of music put into movies that had like Harrison Ford in them, like A-list movies, like with huge budgets and stuff like that. And we would talk about Hollywood, and I've had conversations with people out there, and I've gone out there, and I've had conversations, and I've been sent scripts, and I've been told this and that, and I'm going to be getting this, and you know, all this money to write a string orchestra piece, and Natalie Portman's in the movie, and this whole thing, and Louis C.K. is going to be playing the governor of Hawaii, and I'm all excited. And then the whole thing falls apart in such a like disgusting, ghosted way. And Richard said to me, I explained that to me. He said, "Oh, in Hollywood, they kill you with hope."
With what? With hope?
With hope.
Aww.
You know, I thought that he's like, there have been times where I've just like left, and I've just like come back where I'm just literally like just crushed, where I just have to like come back to New York. And he's like, the best way to deal with it is just completely on your own terms, but that doesn't mean acting like a blank black HOLE, you know? Right. So I try to be a nice guy, and I just do it. But and maybe I needed to go through that a few times, like where you get some young filmmaker who's like talking a big game, because that's what people do out there. And you get taken in by it. It's very seductive. Your dream is about to come true. You're about to get 200 grand to write a film score, which is like what it is, you know, and then it just goes away, and it's very seductive and whatever. And so anyway, but Richard also said, and this is, you know, I remember one time watching this thing, no one goes to see a movie because of which hedge fund or which finance company financed the film, right? Right. No one cares that CIBC financed the movie Three Kings. They want to see Three Kings and that movie. And then he said the best way to get your music, I mean, it's so simple, but this is how demented the labyrinth of going through like a composition department at a place, at a conservatory can be. He's like, the best way to get your music like used is to write the best music you can, get it performed the best you can, get it recorded the best you can, put it on a CD, although now not a CD, and just blow people away. That's it. Yeah. That's it.
Like via social media.
Right. Just put it on. Just like write the best music you can and blow everybody away. I mean, that's it. And I'm like stunned at how simple that is. Yeah. And then he also said something really interesting, because he went to Columbia for a PhD in composition, and he dropped out at the master's level. And he said something like, and the main reason why is because what they would do is the final project is like, you write a piece of music, and then you write a paper that explains, you know, or extols the virtues of the theory or the theoretical theoretical aspects of the construction of the music. And he said, so what everybody did was the obvious thing. They'd write the paper first, and then they'd write the piece after as just like, you know, like paint by numbers or whatever. And he's like, unless you're thinking in purely musical terms, there's something seriously wrong. And he said, it's so easy to write complicated music. You just do up your tone rows, you write your this or that, your complex music or whatever. What's really hard to do is write C major and really mean it. Mm. And I remember like that just hit me at the right time, you know. I mean, like I really that just hit me right at the right time, you know. Mm-hmm. And of course with Philip Glass, I mean,
right. I was just about to ask you about that because I know you studied with him, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I started as an intern and just kind of sort of just kept kind of hanging around, you know, like, I mean, you know, it's
that
like,
must have been incredible.
I was persistently polite.
I know that.
Yeah.
I'm going to remember that phrase, by the way. That's a good phrase.
And I saw him last year at this event. And I was talking with him and I said, you know, the first time I ever met you, you would like come back. It was like the day or two after you had come back from LA. His film score for the movie Kundun, the Martin Scorsese movie about the Dalai Lama, he got an Academy Award nomination. It was the first one. Mm-hmm. And I said, first time I met you was at this rehearsal studio. I'm overhearing a conversation. And you said, I won just by going out there. I mean, I just showed that some like New York guy can like go out there and do this. Someone's going to win it. It probably won't be me, but some New Yorker will eventually like go out there and win it. Mm-hmm. And then he looked up and he said, well, my agent told me now that because I got the nomination, I can charge $100,000 more per film score. Now that's a very different thing to hear than being at Oberlin and them talking about, you know, writing aleatoric music and doing whatever. I mean, yeah. I mean, I had a little philosophical moment with myself when I heard him say that, and he couldn't believe that I remember that. He's like, I believe I said it, but he couldn't believe it. And he told me that, and again, I don't know what level you want to talk about this as far as like what technical level of music theory, whatever, but like the chord changes that are like pop songs are different for the most part than they are like chord changes in like Schubert or Bach or whatever, obviously. I mean, you know this, but like, then I'm friends with this guy named Robert Fink, and he's this musicologist at UCLA. And we had this great conversation and we talked about the theory behind, you know, like tonal music that's not necessarily specific to like one key. So it's like triadic tonal music, but it's like not necessarily related to a key. Mm-hmm. And they virtually always end in second inversion. I mean, they're these unstable chords that just happen to just stumble over themselves into being this stuff. And it's this thing, get this, I just learned this is incredible. Neo-Romanian music theory. There was some German music theorist, Romani, in the 19th century. And now there's this thing called Neo-Romanian music theory, which basically is what we're talking about. And it kind of is like the Philip Glass harmony, where it's tonal and you get it and it's accessible, but it takes a lot of twists and turns into a lot of cool places. Mm. And he said, if you can have like cool, interesting harmonies, you can do your figurations any way you want. Wow. You know, and clearly he has repeated a lot of figurations over the years, like of a signature style. But I mean, gosh, like the music that he wrote for this like 45-second commercial for American Express. I mean, imagine there's an American Express commercial that's directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Robert De Niro, who is walking around like, I guess it's Dumbo, the cobblestones, and he's also narrating it. And then Philip Glass signs on to write the music. That's different from, you know, vanilla piano stuff underscoring like a pharma ad.
Right.
And I aspire to the former. I try to write everything as art music. That doesn't mean I won't like change something. The first one I wrote, the guy said, "Can you end it on C instead of A?" I said, "Fine." But I think I just try to just do my music. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Be authentic.
I mean, I don't know how to do it any other way. I mean, maybe maybe it's to my detriment
Well,
that
obviously
I
it's
don't,
not.
but I just do my thing, and
That's
and
that's
and
great.
and that's it. That's it. I
Your
just
thing
write the
is
music that
awesome.
I write, and that's it.
Well, I enjoy it, and many, many other
Thank
people
you.
do. So
Yeah, I mean,
you are a
so
huge success. You're doing incredibly
thank you. I mean,
well.
and now what's cool is like I wrote this string quartet because I wrote a string quartet when I was at Oberlin, which was like a study piece.
Right.
And then I wrote my first EP, which was in 2003 called Invisible Days, which I love, which, I think it happens with a lot of people and a lot of authors too, where they go back and after years, they look back and they say, you know what, I really think that the first thing that I wrote was the best thing that I wrote. And like Bret Easton Ellis is one of my favorite authors. I mean, Less Than Zero put him on the map and skyrocketed him into thing. And a million years later, he writes a sequel to Less Than Zero. I mean, I would never think that that would happen. But I guess people go back and they look at that first thing and they say that
Mm-hmm.
really is my thing because you're supposed to grow and move on and change and be writing different music and you can't go back to the thing that you did already and like this and that. But he went back to it. And so like I remade Invisible Days, got it totally cleaned up and remastered and changed it. But then I said, all right, I gotta add more. So like I took the vocal lines and then I got rid of all the instrumentals and then I wrote string quartet versions instead.
Oh, amazing.
So it's like the vocals, this like ambient pop, like emo, ethereal vocals, but over string quartet.
Wow.
And so that was like string quartet number one. And then I wrote a string quartet number two, which was actually loosely based off of one of the songs from Pink G Mint Green.
Oh, yeah.
And then that's coming out on the 21st. And now I'm like, all right, now I got a taste of this. Now I'm really doing this. And I'm writing like 8 of them, like 8 songs. And actually, I think I just added a 9th because I realized there's another one I wanted to do also.
Wow.
And the whole reason why I'm doing it is because this one old teacher of mine said, well, write string quartet album, then do the string work because I want to do a string orchestra. He said, do the string quartet one first, and then the string orchestra one will be like way easier to do.
Yeah.
So that's it. But I want to write. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I want to write a symphony. And it's almost ridiculous. I find it like ridiculous to even use that word. But
Why?
I mean, I guess who doesn't want to write something? I mean, okay, fine. There are a lot of people listening that have no interest in writing a symphony. You know what I mean? But I mean, that's a pretty loaded word.
Has that always been one of your goals as a composer?
No, it really was not one of my goals. I mean, I guess in one way, like my high school teacher was great. He retired early because he got so much work doing like arranging and other stuff. He was like a guy, like, it was pretty cool. Like
Where'd you grow up, by the way? Oh, yeah,
in Westchester, in Marshmont, in New York. And this guy, Carl Stroman, he was like the guru, and everyone called him Stro. And he was just like the man. Even the kids that were like the F-ups, like respected him. Mm-hmm. Like everyone just like respected him. And he was the sort of guy that they'd call, now I'm going to age myself. They'd call him up and they'd say, like the publisher would call him up and they'd say, all right, Bruce Springsteen just came out with this new album. And there's a song on it called Human Touch. We need a junior high school jazz ensemble arrangement of Human Touch by tomorrow, because 3 days from now, there was a recording session scheduled for it. And then they want to start selling the sheet music out to all the places because it's the hot song of the moment.
Right.
So they give him the lead sheet. They FedEx him the lead sheet and a cassette. And he listens to it and he just sits down and spends a few hours and just like does it. Wow. And a lot of you can do it on his own, but sometimes we'd show up for jazz ensemble or band and there'd be like some handwritten thing out and we'd play through it for him, and so that was pretty cool to see that.
So you had some
And
incredible mentors. You've had some incredible teachers along
and
the way.
he said to me,
From early
this
on.
other teacher, this drummer, this other teacher, he said something to me like, oh, that guy, he likes all this like weird stuff like Philip Glass or something like that. And that was like the first time I ever heard that name, Philip Glass. I was like a freshman in high school. And then I remember like on the desk in his office, there was a review, like the art section. There was like a New York Times review of Philip Glass's Second Symphony. And I remember thinking like, oh yeah, it'd be cool to write a symphony one day.
Yeah.
I was like a freshman in high school or sophomore in high school. But I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, I think that would be cool to do that.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm sure you're gonna do it.
I'm gonna do it. I mean, I already have like basically like almost a rough draft of the entire thing. I've basically written the entire rough draft.
I knew you were, yeah.
You know, so and I'm working new songs. I get the string quartets done. I found a string quartet in Budapest that will record these things for me.
Wow.
And they're not on the euro, so it's great because it's cheaper. You know,
there you go.
There are a million orchestras. They even have an office in LA, but there are like a million orchestras that like they're in Moldova or in Prague or in Budapest or in Macedonia or, you know, a lot of like Eastern Bloc places that aren't on the euro, that they contract out a lot of work because it's less expensive. They're non-union, it's total buyout, and it's less money.
Wow. Cool.
So I got hip to one of them.
That's great. And you also founded a label? I read that. Your own label?
All right, let's not okay, yeah. All right. Let's not get like so fancy that I found a label. There was no label.
Music.
Okay. Yeah, there was no label that had any interest in having anything to do with it. And so when I first put out my first EP, I didn't want to say Andrew Shapiro's putting it out. So I came up with the name I read. The first song I ever wrote on the first album I ever put out was called Airbox. So my friend said, just call your label Airbox Music. So I did. He said, it sounds kind of weird.
It sounds actually very legit.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds kind of weird, and it's also ill-defined because I can write a violin sonata, or I can write a synth pop track, or whatever. It's just this floating gaseous cloud of Andrew that can like morph into all these different places. Perfect. Airbox Music. Now, one time, maybe like 10 years ago, this guitarist in New Jersey that I had met at some concert I did in like Philadelphia, he wrote me a letter to my house and with a score and a CD. And he said, I was wondering if you could listen to it. Maybe this is something that Airbox Music would be interested in putting out. And I literally put the letter down and just started laughing hysterically because it never occurred to me ever, that it was anything other than just this, like, me just not calling myself Andrew Shapiro as my label.
I love it.
That someone actually thought this was like a real label that like put stuff out. Now the only thing I think,
create anything.
Yeah. Now the track I made with Neil Gaiman is on that label, and Mark Crozier is a guy who's in the Jesus and Mary Chain, the band, and I wrote a song. He wrote a song, and then I created like this piano arrangement of it, and then we sort of like did it together. And he sang it. I guess that's like put out on the label.
Wow.
But I don't know. I don't necessarily think that, you know, I've been working it for a while, especially in Germany and in London, and this German label almost put out this collection of my piano music, and they ghosted me like everyone else. And so, I mean, my sense is that I'm fine. If someone comes in and they really want to work with me and they think they can make money, fine. But I'm not chasing after people. That doesn't mean that I want to be this self-righteous, like, son of a that I'm eschewing every single thing. I've tried, and I'm constantly pushing my music out to people. And by the way, one of the greatest things in the world is when, and I'm sure you know this, when someone comes completely out of the woodwork and approaches you to do something.
Yeah, that's
because I got invited. I got this random phone call from this guy in Mexico, and they invited me to join the faculty for this composer course that they're doing.
That's great.
I said, how did you? I couldn't believe it. I mean, I've given talks to some colleges, but I said, I want you to know, I mean, with very, very few limitations, anytime anybody calls me up and invites me to do anything, I accept.
You're a yes. You're
Yeah,
a yes guy.
it's not difficult to
Yes.
get me, you know.
Yes.
You
It's
know,
good to know.
so
You've come
I'll
out to
do
the
that.
temple to help me before.
I will. Yeah, no, definitely. I mean,
It's good
but
to be open. It's really good to be open. And especially like, after this whole pandemic, or we're still in it, but we're not in the
yeah.
worst of it. But it sounds like you've been incredibly productive and busy and just creating and saying yes to things that are coming your way, even in a pandemic. I mean, that's
Well, I've just been writing. But another thing is obviously digital distribution doesn't stop. And my most
right.
popular track, this piano instrumental called Me Green, which blew up like crazy on Pandora, and it was very, very exciting. And then Pandora was great because you don't have to do anything. I had an intern, my first intern in like 2007. She said, "Oh, there's this new company called Pandora. We should put together a package and send music to them." I said, "Fine, let's do it." I had never heard of it. We sent it in, and I got a royalty statement. I nearly fell over that it was like 4 million people in one quarter list. I couldn't believe it. It didn't make any sense to me that some art piano instrumental could get that amount of spins. But then I saw what people were tweeting. People were saying, "Oh, sometimes the Coldplay Pandora station plays random piano music." And Andrew Shapiro and Green came on. And then I thought about it and I said, "Oh yeah, there's some arpeggiations. I could see like why there could be some similarity. Some of the Coldplay songs in the middle or in the opening or in the ending have some of that like piano like riff kind of thing going on. So like I guess I could see like why it might end up going there. But the beauty of Pandora for people like me is that you send them the music, you don't have to do a thing. It's all aggregate. They just send the music out to me. You don't have to lift a finger.
Right.
But then Spotify comes out, and then you have to put a lot of energy into that platform.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't for a long time, and now I finally like am. And they do have algorithms, but I mean, and I've told them, I've told Pandora, I said, look, I believe in you. You guys are the people that broke me. You guys are the guys that got this track in front of people. I've gotten 14 million spins on that track on Pandora. Like, if I can help you, you're losing market share, whatever, to Spotify. I believe in Pandora. I want to help you, and I believe in you. And so let me know I can help you. And their response, what their response was? No response whatsoever. But I mean, people like to hate on those companies or whatever. But I mean, if it weren't for Pandora, like it would be a very different world for me,
Yeah.
So I've done the Spotify thing and playlists. I actually this morning found out I got a playlist with like 12,000 followers in Turkey, which is cool. Like I've been working Turkey for a while, Turkey and Brazil. Seriously, like if you go on my Spotify, like the top 10 countries, the top 10 cities, it's like Sao Paulo, Rio, Brasilia, 5 cities I've never heard of in Brazil, and Istanbul. Like
amazing. That's very cool.
Yeah,
your music is touching people from all over the world. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know if it's from all over the world, but I'm definitely digging Turkey and Brazil right now.
Yeah.
And not London, not the UK, and not Germany, because I mean, one guy did, but like, maybe it's just the case that there are so many people contacting like Universal Music or Mercury KX. There are like so many people contacting these labels, and maybe it's just not. I don't know. I just sort of like I give up. I'm not saying I need people to chase me. Right. I'm this incredible person that they have to find me. But it's like after a number of years, it's like, you know what? I give up. I'm just gonna do my thing.
Do your thing.
If they find me,
and when you need to be persistently
polite, if not, I'll be fine.
You'll be. Yes.
I don't care.
Yes.
This one company, this sync company, they rep sync they rep, to get placements. And I've done pretty good with placements. I've had hundreds of placements on TV shows and all this stuff, and did it virtually all on my own.
Amazing.
And I sent in all this stuff to this company, and not 48 hours later. And of course, they always take either 3 weeks to get back to you, or they never get back to you with a response. Yeah. Not 48 hours later, they contacted me saying like, no, sorry, whatever. And I called my rep and I was like, okay, I don't need this company. I'm just fine without them. But can you find out that they even actually looked at it? Because I sent them a lot of music and a lot of information and spreadsheets showing all the placements. It seems to me incredibly unlikely that they even bothered looking at it. Again, if they reject me, fine, I'm cool with that. But at least let me know they looked at it.
I want to know that. Yeah.
And there's something liberating about that. I'm not trying to be like coy or anything like that, but it's like, honestly, I don't need them. Yeah. Speaking of need, but one thing I did start, and I'm not good at it. I'm terrible about asking people for money. And I started this Patreon, patreon.com.
I'm not.
It's where people can like microfinance, like, oh, I really like this artist. Like, I think Tune In with Talya is this like awesome show. And I want to give $5 a month to support it because she's great. And, she's a doll. I love her show. I enjoy it. And you can set up a thing
awesome people on my
where
show.
You can set up a thing where like people could give you $1 a month or $5 a month or $10 a month. And I set this up, and it was actually a fan of mine who wrote me a really intense note a bunch of years ago saying, I never had any health problems. I was a senior in college, and suddenly my heart rate like sped up like crazy while I was out with my friends. I went to the hospital. I had to have this test. And if the test didn't go well, then I would have 2 years to live. But if the test went fine, I'd be fine. And I was in the MRI machine, and I said, oh, can I listen to music? Yeah, you can listen to your Walkman. And I put on the only song that I could think of that would like give me comfort and calm. And that's Mint Green by this guy named Andrew Shapiro, whoever the hell he is. And so I put it on, and then he tracked me down and found me. And
Incredible.
He's the one who's like, and he's like a financial wealth guy. He worked at Boeing for a while.
You never know who you touch.
Yeah, no, he worked at Boeing. He found me on Pandora. He worked at Boeing for a while. He was out west, and then he moved. Now he lives in Boston, like private wealth management or whatever. He started the whole thing. Patreon. He wrote a letter to everybody. He got the video put together. Wow. He started this whole thing, and I said, Will, awesome, go for it. I just don't feel comfortable asking people for the money. Like, I mean, maybe I should get better at it, even if it's like $1 a month, like whatever. But like, I just don't feel comfortable about it. I mean, maybe I should get more comfortable with it. I don't know. But I mean, I'm doing a very soft launch of it now. I'm starting to get it, and I have goals, but
how can we how can our listeners this evening find you the best way? Like your website, a link to your music. How can we find you?
I mean, on Spotify. Okay.
Yes.
If you're listening to Spotify, just go to Andrew Shapiro and you can hear me on Spotify.
Okay.
If you're listening to Apple Music, just go to Andrew Shapiro and listen.
So you are.
If you happen to be in France and you're listening on Deezer, go to Andrew Shapiro. If you want to just read a bunch of stuff, just go to andrewshapiro.com. If you want to check out the Patreon, because there's a cool video. The video that the guy made, it's like this cool. Did I send you the video? I don't remember.
You should put a link in the chat, or I will. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. There's this cool video that you can watch. It's sort of like encapsulates my career and talks about it. And I had a filmmaker friend do it, and he did the voiceover for it. And it sort of like shows like, this is what I've done. These are the projects that are coming up, and like, like this and that. And that it's like the pitch video to like end up.
We want to see that video. We want to see that video.
I think it's a cool video. All right, I'll send you the video. I mean, it's like 2 minutes long.
Yeah.
And I forget about the solicits. I think it's actually like a fun video to watch.
That's great.
It talks about the TED Talk a little bit. It talks about collaborations with different artists.
Oh, can't we?
It talks about the stuff I do with the military. the
That's
military
awesome.
people that I play
Yes, you were
for.
telling me about that too. Yeah.
Yeah, like I mentored these people, like a
So,
songwriting summit.
oh,
it was
cool.
it was awesome because I joined this military. I mean, like I don't have background in military, but I performed for piano recitals every year for
Mm-hmm.
this at this military hospital in Virginia, and then the woman who runs it, she's so cool. She'll just say things like, "Well, Dolly has always just been so great to the group," and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Dolly?" She's like, "Oh, Dolly Parton," and I'm like, "All right, great." I don't know where's Dolly, but like, but
Yeah.
she's so cool, and she'll say she'll say stuff like, Andrew, can you come down to Virginia? Can you come down to DC? Because I mean, she knows my wife's from there, so like I go down there and I see her.
Yeah.
I said, can you come down? We're doing this songwriter summit, and we're having a country singer songwriter come up from Nashville, and we're having this fellow in from Baltimore. He's like a hip hop like rap dude. Can we bring you down? And like they gave each of us like three, and maybe there's some other people. They gave us each like three veterans who were songwriters, and they showed up basically having written the song. And it was a full day workshop at this black box theater in Arlington, Virginia, like
Uh-huh.
near the DC. And I got these three people, and I'm like helping them write the songs. And the first woman like basically had it written, and then we worked on it and whatever. And then I said, all right, here's what we're gonna do. The last time we're gonna come in with the chorus down a minor third, and everyone's gonna go ooh, and everyone did because it's such a bizarre, transposition, and then as opposed to just like kicking it up a half step like
Yeah.
everyone else does. And then second guy writes a song, and that was cool. And the third girl comes along, and this was the one that broke my heart because she wrote a song that was about her niece, who I believe had just been born or was about to be born, her brother-in-law was a Green Beret who was killed in action in Afghanistan. And her sister was like 6 months pregnant or something when this happened. And I kind of wasn't really prepared for that. And she had these words, and I said, all right, well, you work on your lyrics. And she's like, but I don't really know how to write this stuff. Can I just like hum the tune to you, and I'll hum it to you, and then we'll do it. And I said, yeah. And then I wrote it down, and we came up with the harmonies, and we practiced together, and we performed it, that night. And that was great. And I was slated to do it again last year, but then the pandemic happened,
Right. So hopefully you'll do it again.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that was that was a really moving moment. And actually, one thing that was really great, this country singer songwriter person, her name is Heidi Newfield, and she lives in Nashville, and she was on the charts like for some stuff. She was like super cool, and I was actually like when I first got down there, I was like really like a little intimidated because I read her bio and I was like, whoa, like Billboard charts, and she was NRA Artist of the Month for like 1 month a bunch of years ago, and I don't know much about the National Rifle Association, but like I know like virtually nothing. I know like what to propagate, whatever, but I didn't know that the NRA has an Artist of the Month. But she was NRA Artist of the Month.
Wow.
It turns out she grew up like way north of San Francisco, like way upstate California, like on a ranch.
Wow.
Is like her background, And she was NRA Artist of the Month. But she said, when she was introducing her people, she said, I just met Joey Tommy Boy today, and he's great. And we worked on his song, and this guy has got his voice as smooth as Tennessee whiskey. And I turn and look at Kathy, and I said, I am not in New York City right now. Like, this is just not that, and she was great. So
great.
It's led there. So anyway,
very cool.
Yeah, I mean,
Andrew, this has been so fun. This has been fun.
I've enjoyed it immensely.
Yes.
I hope that. Well, I look forward to watching it. I will send you videos as we discussed.
Send me some links, and I'll share them. And
and I'll look forward to being in touch with you, hopefully at a more frequent clip than since the last time, which was
Yes. And
like
I'm thinking back to when we
10.
first met at this random Ivy League, like college
Yeah,
party. That
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah,
so glad
totally.
that our paths crossed
Yeah,
then
and
and
then
we've stayed
and
in
then you
touch all
knew
these years.
someone else. Like somehow,
We
I
had a
think.
lot of mutual music friends
Yeah, and
and
then we like ended up like having these
yeah.
mutual musical friends. And Talia Smilowitz is it's a when I hear that name, it brings me joy.
Aw,
You know,
thank you.
you know.
Well, I feel the same
So
about you.
yeah,
And I'm so
so
glad we've
so
stayed in touch and we're friends. And
likewise,
thank you
yeah.
for your
And
music.
I
It's so
always enjoy
enjoyable.
seeing your pictures with the kids and
Oh,
everything. It's great. It's fun.
thanks.
And
Thank you.
so have a good night. I think we're good. So if you have any questions, let me know
All right.
and we'll be in touch, okay?
Sounds great. Thank you so
You
much,
feel is
Andrew.
this is okay, you
This
got
was
like enough, or
awesome.
this
Yes,
was
this is
like
great. We're now
good.
we're done. We're
We're
ending
good.
the or you're good. We're awesome.
We're
Thank you
good.
so much. This was a fun interview and it was so
I
enjoyable and I
concur.
know our listeners really enjoyed it too. So thank you so
God
much.
willing, they will. Okay.
Yes, and tune in with me next week for another Tune In with Talia at 6
For
p.m.
another, okay, but I want to hear the theme song.
Oh, you'll be hearing it.
Okay.
Do,
Very
do,
good.
do, na, na.